listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Well, welcome to another... I'm having trouble with these earphones and feedback. So those of you who are watching on YouTube, excuse me, but I keep having to adjust these things. Okay. All right. This is November 20th. And this is number 10, actually, of the new regime of the Midnight Skeptic. By new regime, I mean when I restarted doing this after closing down for a couple of months because of this COVID madness. And so this is being recorded on Friday the 20th, and it will be broadcast on KPCA LP 103.3 throughout Petaluma or Sonoma County on Sunday the 22nd. And as soon as I do the YouTube, as soon as I do this whole thing, I will put the YouTube up, and then we'll transmit this into PCA, Petaluma Community Access, and it'll be downloaded in their Dropbox, and will be broadcast on the 22nd, Sunday night, 9 p.m. And for all of my thousands and thousands of listeners out there, you can tune in online, www.kpca.fm. Okay. Shout outs. Okay. This has been a crazy, not just this week, but crazy after November 3rd, the election. And if the orange sociopath's attempts to steal the election through bogus court cases and lawsuits and recounts and, oh, man. If we can finally just get rid of him on January 20th and get a decent person, just a nice person, a non-egotist. I grant you that all politicians have to have some kind of an ego to even be a successful politician, but we have just got to get rid of this guy. Okay, all right. Shout out Stanley Gustafson down in Pacifica, California, the retired city attorney of Daly City, and we go back a long ways to the mid-'70s when we were both working at Payless Drugs in San Francisco, and we both went on to bigger and better things. Me to beer and beverage sales, and him to finishing up law school, and then being, I think it was San Bruno. He was city attorney for a while, and then ultimately to Daly City, where he spent the majority of his legal career guarding Daly City against all sorts of mishigas. Okay, my brother Brandon, who's retired from Bank of Stockton, and he was a business lending specialist for them. And Brandon's family, Mina, his wife, and their family down there, my cousin Andrea and her husband Tim, and their 3 little terrorists. I hope everybody is safe down there. Andrea is a nurse in a hospital near where they live in Santan Valley, California. And, okay, Bob and Sandy Fisher and Brad and Martha. Martha is a nurse, a CNA, up in Sonora, California. And I wish that she stays safe and gets PPE'd up before she goes into work at the senior convalescent hospital. I think that's what it is. But Bob is a retired pharmacist, lifelong pharmacist. He and I roomed together in Stockton, California, while he was going to pharmacy school at University Pacific, and I was returning to college after my stint in the Navy, the Naval Weather Service. And then I went back to college, and this Hulk that's doing this show still essentially don't know what I want to be when I grow up, if I ever grow up. At this point, I don't think I am ever going to grow up. Okay. Kathy Clark over in Stockton, California, my cousin Kathy, who is more like my sister than a cousin, and cousin Chanda, who's up in Reno. Maybe they actually live in Sparks. I'm not sure. It's near there. But anyway, she's retired from the teaching business, and earlier in her life as a cocktail waitress up in the Reno casinos. And her husband Ozzy and her 3 kids, Michael and Christiana and Alex, who is I think finishing up medical school up at University of Nevada, Reno. I wish all 3 of them well and keep safe. Tim Conrad and Darrell Larson, who were both in my high school class with Bob Fisher up in Sonora, California. Darrell Larson, the tax guy in Tuolumne County. If you want your taxes done right, then you go to Darrell Larson. I think he's retired now from doing that. He might still have a few clients here and there, but Tim Conrad moved down here to Petaluma, and he is a photographer that is excellent, and he has a number of his photos in various galleries around town. And also shout out to Mickey Huff, who is the godfather of Project Censored, and they come out every year. I've said this on other shows, with a book called Project Censored, where they delve into the reporting or lack thereof of stories that should be reported in greater detail or any kind of detail. And he's a history professor over at Diablo Valley College, and he has a show on KPCA. He broadcasts his on Wednesday at 3, and you can hear him live if you go to www.kpca.fm, and then he rebroadcasts that show over at KPFA they're over in Berkeley, and he does his show 1 to 2 o'clock over there at Berkeley. Okay, and then Tim Munnicky over in Fairfield, and his wife Julie. Tim's a grammar school teacher. We used to work together, both of us at Safeway. That was after my beer and beverage selling career. Nelson Lydell, who was also class of 61 up in Sonora, California, who is a retired United States Public Health Service officer. And his specialty in this day and age are breathing masks and lung safety. and keeping particles out of your lungs. Boy, do we need his expertise now. He wrote a textbook on that subject. He got his PhD in I think it was chemical engineering, I believe, and wrote a textbook that Harvard still uses for their classes on that sort of thing. Dave and Rosie Takach up in Sacramento, and another one up in a new listener, Leonidas Maciel up in Sonora, California. She was also in a class of, I hate to use the year of the class because that ages everybody, but be that as it may. Okay, and then my favorite herpetologist, I can't forget her, down in Patagonia, Arizona, Karina Hilliard. She is a recently appointed animal control officer, I think badge number 109. Anyway, for those people down in the Patagonia, Arizona area, if you find on returning home from work or shopping or anything, if you find a diamond head rattlesnake curled up in a warm spot in your kitchen floor, well, it's Karina that you call. She'll come get rid of it for you and then release the thing up in the mountains around Patagonia. Okay, this is going to be kind of a catch-all show. I set the tone for it by just extending the shout-outs a little bit. Like I say, this has been an extremely weird time in our nation's history. The damage, and I don't use that word lightly, the damage that, oh God, I hate this phrase, President Trump is trying to do before he is actually ousted from the office of presidency of this country is just staggering. The Biden administration is going to have to use most of the first couple of years just repairing the damage and sweeping all of these Trump appointees out of their positions that he's put them in. He has put Trump loyalists, political loyalists, into administrative positions in all of these federal offices, the CDC, the NIH, the NOAA, which I'll be talking about in a minute. Everything that requires some knowledge of science or appreciation of evidence, that counts for nothing. And these people have to be gotten rid of and replaced with people who actually care about the people in this country. I want a special shout out to Scott Atlas. Now, the reason that he got appointed to head the coronavirus committee that's headed by the white ghost, Mike Pence, is because Trump saw him blathering on about how the coronavirus should be dealt with on Fox News. This guy is not an epidemiologist. He's not a disease expert at all. He was this medical specialty, it's escaping me right now. Damn brain freezes. The medical specialty where you put people under sedation for operations and things. Geez, it'll pop into my head after a while, but that was his specialty. And he was the architect of the herd immunity way that the Trump administration is attempting to deal with this COVID-19 outbreak. And the herd immunity is just let the COVID-19 spread throughout the population. Those who die, well, too bad. And those who survive and come through it okay, they will be immune, which itself is problematic. Anyway, and then if everybody gets it, and those who survive will be immune. That's the theory, a faulty theory, I want to add. And then that is going to require... I've been itching to use that sound effect for quite a while. Well, thank you, Scott Atlas. Now, what he was doing before Trump appointed him into this position of fraught with danger is he was a member of the Hoover Institution down at Stanford University. Okay, well, what's the Hoover Institution? It is a extremely right-wing think tank, and they espouse right-wing causes like libertarianism, extreme libertarianism to a certain extent, to a limited extent. I'm a libertarian, but this guy, I don't know who found him on Fox News to get him on there and talk about this, but his thing is fewer federal regulations, the better. And he gives hope to all of those MAGA heads out there that just think that being encouraged to wear masks, face masks, during this COVID-19 outbreak is limiting their freedom or liberty. Oh, okay. All right. Ranting. Okay. Back to NOAA. Okay, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. Okay, the damage... Oh, shoot. Excuse me. I've got to adjust some things here. Okay, the damage that the Trump administration is doing to... In the final months, hopefully this will be the final months, meaning November, well, half of November, December, and then half of January. Okay. He's putting people into positions of power, of supervisorial powers, and it just ruins them. Okay, the appointment of I'm sorry. Let me restart this sentence. The appointment of two prominent climate science deniers and a former Trump campaign official to top NOAA agency positions is just going to hurt the whole NOAA, which also includes the Weather Service, the Federal Weather Service that they track hurricanes, which don't require Sharpies to be added onto by Trump on their projected hurricane paths. Anyway, the one that I really, really wish would slip on a banana peel and endanger himself so he can't perform his duties. This guy's name is David Legates. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. It's Legates. And he's a University of Delaware geography and climatology professor who works closely with the Heartland Institute, that outfit that's funded mainly by the Koch brothers. Well, there's only one Koch left. That's Charles Koch. And they're an extreme right-wing think tank. It's kind of like the Hoover Institution down in Stanford. Um, you might pronounce his name, if it's Spanish or Mexican, Legates. He might pronounce it that way, or his parents might have pronounced their last name that way. Anyway, you've heard me say before about climate change deniers and global warming deniers that it's pretty close to a unanimous scientific consensus that that's what's happening to our Earth. And the figure of 97% has been tossed around quite a bit. 97% of scientists agree that this is in fact happening, and it's connected very closely to increasing emissions of CO2. Well, what about this other 3%? And I've done a segment on this show before that these 3% are not necessarily global warming or CO2 increasing or climate change deniers. What they say is there's insufficient proof to satisfy them, for them to absolutely accept this finding that the global temperatures are going up. Okay, well, this guy, David Legates or Legates, is within that 3%. Now, I don't know whether he just denies it to be a contrarian, or there's just insufficient proof to satisfy himself. Either way, Trump found this guy and now put him in the head of the NOAA. Oh, boy. He also has a connection with the Competitive Enterprise Institute, which is yet another right-wing think tank that encourages businesses and corporations to do their thing, which is profit, 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 über alles. He is dismissive of NOAA's data gathering and modeling. He doesn't say it's wrong, and he doesn't present his own modeling or data. He just dismisses it. Okay. And this is a quote from him. There is no scientific consensus on the effect of CO2 on the environment. Well, that's just absolutely wrong. How much consensus do you have to have in order to go along with all your scientific buddies out there who do believe in it? Okay, another guy that the Trump administration was trolling through the muck of the Cato Institute, yet another right-wing think tank. Ryan Maue, M-A-U-E, and he has been appointed to be the chief scientist at NOAA. I wasn't able to find a lot about his background or what he was doing with the Cato Institute, but it's just an example of how the Trump administration finds these people and appoint them to head these agencies that align themselves with Trump's thinking, and I use that term in its loosest sense, about all these political leanings. Okay, enough of that. Okay, I hope that when Biden gets into office, he restores the scientific integrity of the NOAA. Step one is getting rid of David Legates. Second thing is getting rid of Ryan Maue, M-A-U-E. Okay. Court case. ExxonMobil versus Harvard. How could this have come to be? Okay. In 2016, the attorney generals from 17 U.S. states are exploring working together. Okay, they were exploring working together in 2016. Okay, well, now it's 2020. So this court case is going along and going along and going along. Okay, what these 17 U.S. states attorney generals are claiming is that interior memos about climate change initiatives, including investigating whether ExxonMobil and other fossil fuel companies misled the public about fossil fuels' connection to global warming via increasing CO2 quantities in the air. Well, of course they lied to the public. I think on the last show, in my hierarchy of evil, corporate evil, the tobacco industry was numero uno on this list. Well, number 2 was the oil and coal industries. Okay, we can kind of dismiss the coal industries right now. They're dead. They're going away. It's going to take about another 5-10 years maybe, but the last of the coal will be gone, hopefully, in this country. Okay. ExxonMobil, back in the early 60s, late 50s, they were just Exxon. And I'm not sure exactly the date that they merged with Mobil, but all of these larger oil companies have their own group of scientists because they want to find out new products to make out of the oil that they suck up out of the earth. But some of the scientists for Exxon kind of came to the conclusion that, hey, if we burn all of the fossil fuels that we're sucking up out of the earth and it gets burned for heating and use in power plants and transportation, cars, trucks, airplanes, ships, the level of CO2 in the atmosphere is going to increase dramatically. Well, what's wrong with that? Okay, it heats up the earth because of the greenhouse effect. Okay, extremely briefly, what the greenhouse effect is. Short wave radiation, relatively shorter wave radiation that we receive from the sun comes through the layer of atmosphere around the earth, and it hits the ground, or it hits clouds, or it hits the surface of the oceans, and the earth radiates back out longer wave radiation. And it's these longer wave radiation that the CO2 molecules in the atmosphere trap. A lot of them, not even most of them, but it doesn't take very much. The CO2 captures these longer wave energy radiations, these photons, and increases the energy of the CO2 molecules. Increased energy means they move faster. They bump into air molecules, O2, N2, and the other trace gases in the atmosphere, argon being one of them, and cause them to move faster. Well, faster moving molecules mean we perceive it as higher temperatures. Well, everything perceives it as higher temperatures. Okay, that's basically the greenhouse effect. Okay, higher temperatures means melting ice. Um, the tundra up in the far north starts. Okay, it's not tundra actually. Tundra is the plants that are up there. Oh, geez. But anyway, the ice sheets melt, sea levels rise, not only from melting ice, but also just heating up water expands it. And that expansion itself is quite dangerous as far as sea level rise goes. Okay. And boy, when I start riffing on these things, I sometimes kind of lose track of where I went off the rails. It's not an unusual thing because in a lot of ways, my entire life has been spent off the rails. Okay. Anyway, where was I? Exxon scientists realized this and presented their findings to the corporate poobahs at Exxon. And I'm not sure whether it was before or after they merged with Mobil, but whatever it is, executives are a dime a dozen. They come and go. All these suits are interchangeable. But anyway, I can picture the scene when these white lab-coated scientists came to present their findings to a mahogany table surrounded by suits, corporate suits, and said that, hey guys, we've got to really be careful, or we've got to try to do something about our product, which is oil and gas products, being burned in transportation, cars, trucks, ships, planes, and in power plants. If we allow all this stuff to be burned, one of the byproducts is CO2, and it increases the temperature of the atmosphere. We should really try to do something about this to mitigate it somehow, or discourage the use of our product. Well, that's not going to fly. So ExxonMobil had a choice to make. Okay, we can spend a lot of our profits, and it's a huge amount of profits, educating the public on maybe how not to burn so much of this fuel. Buy cars that get better mileage, or buy cars that use alternative fuels, or better yet, electricity. Now, we're talking into the 1980s and 1990s. And conservation, methods of conservation. We could spend our money funding think tanks on educating the public on this danger that we're in. Okay, that's one choice. The other choice is to fund right-wing think tanks like the Heritage Institute, like the Hoover Institution, like the Cato Institute, to try to confuse the public, try to convince them that, the science is not finalized on this topic, and it's not really a danger. They took a page out of the playbook of the tobacco industries that tried to sow doubt in the minds of the public. And there was a book written, and I think a documentary made based on it, called The Merchants of Doubt. And I didn't know that I was going to mention this. The lady that wrote this book, her name escapes me, as many things do escape me. But anyway, if you get a chance to read this book or see the documentary, Merchants of Doubt, the whole purpose of the tobacco industry back in the 50s, 60s, 70s was to cloud the reasoning of the purchasing public and to reassure them that smoking doesn't cause cancer. The science is not 100% certain about this. Go ahead and smoke. Anyway, I heard a statistic the other day that the smoking rate among adults in this country has plateaued at a low level, thank goodness, at about 14%. So, 14%. I have a feeling that most of these 14% smokers are MAGA heads who probably don't wear their masks because it's freedom, it's liberty. If I want to smoke and kill my lungs, that's my choice. Okay, enough of that. Okay, so anyway, back to this lawsuit. That's where I strayed. Okay, 2016, attorneys general from 17 states gathered together to sue the tobacco companies, and as evidence, they glommed onto all of these internal memos that are housed in Harvard University's archives. I don't know why Harvard got all these things, but they do, or they did. I guess it's of historical value. Anyway, the 17 attorney generals subpoenaed these internal memos from the oil companies, mainly ExxonMobil, but others as well. Okay, so that is an ongoing lawsuit right now. The claim is that they lied to the public, which of course they did. So I will update you all when results of this lawsuit are available to the public. Okay. Different topic. I told you at the start of the show that this is going to be kind of a catch-all thing. One thing that, as far as transportation goes, that is not fossil fuel burning, hyperloops. This idea came to Elon Musk about 10 years ago, and what it is a tube, a rather large tube that is enclosed at both ends, and there's a vehicle inside of it, and it is a relatively vacuum enclosed tube. And his idea was miles and miles and miles of this, and also on the tracks that these vehicles ride on are maglevs. Okay, and the vehicles don't ride on the rails. They are kept by magnets, half an inch or an inch off the rails, which eliminates the friction. And so you can, in theory, get up to speeds of 500 or 600 miles an hour. Well, Elon Musk has made up a couple of short tubes to kind of test this idea out. Well, there's another company, the Virgin Group, Virgin Airlines, and what's the British guy's name? Richard Branson, who's on the board and originally started the Virgin Group. Well, what they did was out in the Nevada desert, they built their version of the Hyperloop, and it goes about a mile and a half, 2 miles. I'm not sure exactly the length of it, but it was successfully tested at about 150 miles an hour with 2 people riding in their little bullet vehicle, one female, one male, in these form-fitting chairs that are inside these vehicles, and it was successfully tested. Okay, great. So this is a quite workable method of transportation. And what Richard Branson said was he's not thinking in terms of people so much, although it can be done, quickly transferring large quantities of merchandise, which are now carried by trucks on the interstates. Well, if you can have a hyperloop between, say, LA and Omaha, Nebraska, which could be done, you would get this big container full of merchandise from LA to Omaha, Nebraska in a couple of hours. You don't have to put it on a truck. And so that's the great hope for this. You could carry what Elon Musk was thinking was between LA and Las Vegas, or LA down to San Diego. Okay, well, Richard Branson is thinking a little bit bigger, and he's thinking more cargo and merchandise to be carried by these hyperloops. Anyway, it's American ingenuity will come through in the end. Okay, completely different topic. A weird thing happened to me about a week ago. My audio engineer, Dennis, set up for me a Google Assistant, so I can just tell it to turn the lights on, turn the lights off, or play a song for me. And my usual routine in the morning is I groggily get up out of bed and I jump into the shower first thing. I can't wake up without 2 things: a shower and lots of coffee. And I mean lots of coffee. Anyway, jump in the shower, I start drying off, and then I ask the Google Assistant to play me a song. Usually it's Creedence Clearwater or the Grateful Dead. Those are my, that gives you the generation that I am part of. And then I ask it to play one particular song, and then I just let it go. What could be frightening to some people is Google learns what songs you like after a while. And then it just, the songs that it plays for me after I ask it the first song is just, I'm interested to know what they just play various things. Well, one of the songs that I asked once upon a time, somewhere along the line, was The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. And I don't know how many of my listeners out there, my thousands and thousands, are familiar with that song. It starts, Virgil Kane was the name, and I worked on the Danville train. And it's a Civil War song, and it's a very catchy tune. It's one of these earworms. I just can't get the tune out of my mind. Well, okay, about a week ago, I heard that tune, except it was sung by this girl who had a very sweet, nice voice, but in German. And I recognized the tune right away as The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, but I just assumed that it was the German translation of it. And so life goes on. I drank my coffee, got on the internet, and I was very curious about this, about all of the words to The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. and because I couldn't really make out a few of the words that was in the song. And when I Googled it, I got the lyrics and everything. And when it was written, which was 1969, by the way, that goes way back, it was by The Band, which is a Canadian group. And the guy that wrote the words to it was the one guy in the group that originated in Arkansas. And he researched the Civil War, because none of them, I guess, they don't study up in Canada about our Civil War. Surprise, surprise. But anyway, this one guy whose name also escapes me wrote the lyrics to this and the tune. Anyway, getting back to the German version of this, I also, when I Googled it, it said German version on this. So I clicked on it and listened to it, and her voice is very, very sweet and haunting, and I could tell from the tenor of her voice that she was channeling some angst of some sort. And so going on Google and finding out all of these things, her name was Juliane Verding. Okay, in German, W's are pronounced V. So her last name is pronounced Verding, except that it's spelled Werding. And it just didn't sound to me like she was singing about our Civil War. And so I got on a site on YouTube where they give you the translation, and it wasn't about anything about us at all. She sang this song when she was 15 years old, and she was a street performer. And a friend of hers in Essen, Germany, where I think she was born there, she and I can visualize this, although I couldn't find out for sure, but a boyfriend or an acquaintance died of a drug overdose there on the sidewalks of Essen, Germany, and I have no way of knowing whether he was right next to her or what exactly happened. But the name of the song in German is Am Tag als Conny Kramer Died. The day that Conny Kramer died. And it became a #1 hit in West Germany. It was West Germany at that time. And it remained on the #1 list in Germany for about 14 or 15 weeks. And it was popular enough that other German groups have parodied that song. And then she has gone on to become a very popular singer in Germany. And, when I Googled her and went on Wikipedia, she has a lot of albums out, all in German. And she now is 64, and she quit show business, it says, in 2009, and she's an alternative therapist. Whatever that means, that's probably something that the Midnight Skeptic would scoff at, or we require proof of the effectiveness of it. Anyway, that's aside. That's what she's doing now. She has 2 kids, but anyway, I urge all of my thousands and thousands of listeners out there to go on YouTube and look up Juliane Verding and listen to this song, Am Tag als Conny. I botched it. Okay, I don't speak German, as you probably all realize. Am Tag als Conny Kramer Died. Okay. But, I could what attracted me to it was the anguish in her voice as she sung this song in German. And she has a very sweet voice. Okay, enough of that. Okay. Homophobia. Okay. In San Francisco, of all places. I want to relate this story to you. Before I met my wife, and we lived in San Francisco for a few years, I was working for a beer and beverage distribution company, and but before I met my wife, I was living on 8th Avenue between Anza and Balboa, this apartment building, with Dr. Dave Rubin. He was my roommate, and I forget whether I gave him a shout out this time or not, but anyway, he's back in the Raleigh-Durham area now. He was a lung doctor at that time. Okay, up on Geary Boulevard and around the corner between 9th and 10th was a bar called Peg's Place, P-E-G'(S), play. And it was a women's bar, lesbian bar. And I didn't know this until a bit later when I started working for the beer and beverage industry. But the owner of the bar, her name was Linda Simaco, and on the night of March 31st, 1979, a group of San Francisco policemen, about 10 or 12 of them, were attending a bachelor party for one of them. And then they decided to bar hop, I guess, in that neighborhood, and carrying their beers around with them, which is illegal. And they wound up at the front door of Peg's Place, and they knew that it was a women's bar because most of these cops were members of the Vice Squad, and there no longer is a Vice Squad as a part of the San Francisco Police Department. I don't know if any modern day police departments actually have a squad called the Vice Squad. If they don't, good news. Okay. They were informed that, this is a women's bar and you're carrying your beers and you guys are quite drunk. So please don't come in. We just want to be left alone to be ourselves here. Oh, well, they forced their way in there. And in the ensuing melee, Linda Simaco was injured in one of these chokeholds, and she had to spend 10 days in the hospital. And the door person, the lady, was hit over the head with a pool cue and required concussion protocols. And anyhow, the Richmond Police Station is down on 6th Avenue, which is relatively close. Well, Linda Simaco called the police, and what these guys said that, we are the police, and we can do whatever we damn well please. Okay. So eventually a couple of uniformed officers came down there to kind of investigate, and I put that in quotes. There was only 3 of the officers that were charged with anything at all. Only one of them, and his last name was Marr, M-A-R-R. I don't know if he's still with us or not. I forget what his first name is. But he was fined $1,000 and then suspended for something like 30 days. Anyway, Dianne Feinstein was the mayor at that time in San Francisco. This was shortly after the assassination of Harvey Milk and Mayor Moscone, and they were being put on trial at this time. And this trial of this Officer Marr was going on at the same time. Okay, well, he got a slap on the wrist, sort of. And anyway, the decision in the Milk Moscone trial, Dan White, who was the guy that did it, he got 8 years, which is, for 2 murders, is essentially a slap on the wrist. Okay, well, the White Night riots were at the end of May, 2 months away from this incident at Peg's place. And, well, the White Night riots are a subject of historical... It's another one of the riots where the gays stood up for themselves and made injustice pay dearly. Okay. I don't have a heck of a lot of time here. But anyway, in 1979, homophobia was rampant in the police department, and I just want to end on that note. It is time to play the out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, well, that was the play out music, and I've got, 20 seconds to go, so listen up and look out for The Midnight Skeptic 2 Sundays from now, which would be on, let's see, where am I? The 6th of December, December 6th. That's one day before Bombing Hawaii Day. Okay, take care, everybody. Think logically, scientifically, rationally, and pet your cats.